Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So this week, both sides of this referendum have really been getting down to brass tacks. The big set piece TV grillings have begun. Senior Conservatives have been knocking lumps out of each other. And the Labour machine seems finally to have creaked into life. Our Adam's been on the buses to see where this campaign is heading.
There's livestock, there's Boris Johnson, we've been told to wear wellies, and there's a man with a stuffed animal. What could possibly go wrong? Well, I suppose I could have accidentally bought the cow Boris was auctioning.
Going on. Sold. There you go.
This was the week the referendum started to feel a bit more like a general election campaign, and not just because of the photo ops. Vote Leave unveiled a spending commitment, cutting the VAT on domestic fuel, and a whole new immigration system, a bit like a government in waiting.
And here Boris told farmers that their subsidies would be safe, even if the UK left the EU. Not everyone was convinced.
He has no authority, no power. He's just a person that's walked in here and said what he's got to say.
It's like me saying it.
You could say it, I could say it, I can promise. I could promise everybody the world.
Boris, two questions. First of all, where are your wellies? And second of all,
There's hardly any muck under foot.
are you getting a bit of grief from the farmers?
No, there's a lot of support, a lot of support, and a lot of people coming up to me saying, "We're with you. We want to come out." Some people obviously need reassurance about the subsidies, and that's the most important thing.
He left without offering me a lift, so I caught the train to Birmingham and the Labour In campaign. Alan Johnson's been the front man.
Hey Roy, how you doing?
But this week, Jeremy Corbyn made a big speech after it emerged many Labour supporters didn't know the party was in favour of the EU.
Do you think that was a great speech from JC?
Yeah, I think Jeremy's journey, if you like, which mirrors the journeys that many have made on this. He was a Eurosceptic in '75. He's now changed his mind, and I think it's more powerful for that.
Our journey took us to a building site to see investment from abroad that the Remain campaign claim is linked to our EU membership. Of course, with foreign money comes foreigners.
Are you going to vote?
No, come out.
Yeah, why is that?
Because of all the immigrants and things like that. Too many of them now coming into this country.
Well, inevitably I've ended up in one of these, and a hard hat that's too big. This week the Remain campaign got some high visibility backing from foreign leaders in Spain, the Netherlands and Chancellor Merkel in Germany.
And look who else jetted in, the former Foreign Secretary, David Miliband.
Some people might say that you live in America now, you're one of these high-profile foreigners coming over and lecturing us what to do. What do you say to that?
I'm a British voter and I'm able to speak with passion about my own country. This is my home country, and although it's not where I live and work at the moment, I still feel that there is a real obligation to speak not just to the economic issues and the security issues, but also the foreign policy issues, frankly.
And sadly, I didn't have time to ride on Britain's Stronger in Europe's luxury coach or hop onto Nigel Farage's double-decker. Typical. You wait ages for a referendum battle bus to come along, and then loads turn up at once.
So you had Alan Johnson there defending Jeremy Corbyn's latest intervention in the referendum campaign, despite critics claiming that Labour hasn't exactly been full-throated in its campaign in support of a vote to remain. Well, the former Deputy Prime Minister, veteran Labour campaigner John Prescott seems to agree. He says in his newspaper column today that his party's message hasn't been getting through. He joins us now from our Hull studio. John Prescott, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You say in your column that the Conservatives have hijacked the referendum campaign. Why has Labour allowed that to happen?
Well, it's a good point. I do suggest that in the paper and in my article that seems almost to have been a strategy. Blue on blues destroying the Tory party, hopefully. We have to wait and see, and we've seen that in the broadcast this morning. But where's Labour? It seems as if we're just enjoying the fight between them. But that is not putting Labour's position. Labour may be in the European, supports being in it. I support being in it as well. But we're not putting Labour's arguments. And so when you see on a bus there, for example, on Boris's books, £350 million a week, we could now put that into the health service. This is from a government that reduced from 9% of GDP, the average in Europe, to 7%. And when the other goes on with a Labour politician, in this way it's Giesler, who are the people who get the publicity? The Tories get the publicity, and they're in the background. We're not putting down what the record was of the Tory. They can't do it because they're in a joint agreement on a bus about Europe.
All
but
right, can I just ask you another question?
Europe.
Let me just get another question. As a result of everything you say, are you worried that you're failing to galvanise the Labour vote to get it out to vote for Remain on the 23rd?
Absolutely. You know, Labour people want to hear Labour people talking about this government's record. Whether they're for in or out on the blue on blue, they carried out a record that's basically destroying our health service. Our housing was halved in billions, and now they say they'll bring housing. Mr Gove this morning says, oh, these terrible bankers. Well, why didn't he vote with Labour then? We tried to stop the bonuses going for them. He didn't, he doesn't. They're hypocritic. We must show that Labour's got strong values. We believe in social justice. When have you heard the Tories talking about being a social justice party?
Maybe,
talk Labour, look Labour, act Labour.
Maybe Labour voters are confused. I mean, if you look at last week's pro-EU speech by Jeremy Corbyn, he spent almost as much time attacking the Tories and EU policies. He said that
good on Jeremy. I support that.
But hold on, he said the bad things predicted by the vote leave, predicted by those who think we should remain. He said that all these scare stories about if we leave were just myth-making and prophecies of doom. Is it any surprise that Labour voters are confused?
Well, yes, but I don't think we talk too much about what we should do and what our social Europe is. Look, Jeremy's not a passionate man, is he? He doesn't scream and shout like me, does he? I hope the arguments still count. Though to that extent, our people want to see, and that's what's happened to politics, that people speak and do believe what they're saying. On both sides, Cameron's side and the Boris Johnson, they're saying things they didn't do in government, which Labour oppose and are against social justice. Put a Labour voice in, a Labour Europe, a Europe different to them. Don't say, well, we all believe in Europe, let's travel on the same bus. Nonsense. No wonder our people are confused. Get a strong Labour voice. I'm glad Jeremy said what he said, but get putting in our case and point out what these beggars did in government.
What about the confusion, though? Even a senior Labour advisor, Damien McBride, he seems to have been caught on Twitter, apparently, offering policy tips to the Brexit campaign. Again, Labour voters seem to be confused by mixed messages.
Who's that?
Damien McBride. I think you have heard of him.
He is a totally confused man, isn't he? Move on to your next question. All
right, my next question is this. Why don't you appear on platforms with Tories to argue the case for Remain? Isn't our membership of the EU bigger than party politics?
No, it is bigger, but I don't say that the Europe they want is the Europe I want. Look, I took part in the last referendum, despite the Tories not giving us a referendum and taking us in 1975 into the common market. I do believe I was against a political Europe, a wide political Europe. And in fact, I turned down a job with Callaghan to be the commissioner. On that grounds, I thought that's where they were heading. I can't say it stopped, to be fair, in that argument. But what we argued then for was a wider Europe. So we didn't move along the federal Europe case. That is still an argument to be fought for. I feel strongly about it. I know Labour does. We instigated that policy. I'm not so sure the Tories pursued it.
Well, Sadiq Khan, Tessa Jowell, Ed Bowles, Harriet Harman, they've all appeared with Tories, including the Prime Minister. But you refuse to do that, to make it like an all-party campaign. But last night you were appearing on Russia Today, which is a Kremlin-Putin propaganda channel.
With that's a bit of a propaganda
with Ken
point,
Livingstone. He's been suspended from your party. Have you really thought this through?
Of course I've thought it through. I don't go in joint party operations. I never have. I didn't when I fought for Labour's campaign in 1975. I'm still the same. I'm not saying they can't or shouldn't, but we're all saying the Labour vote is crucial and there's confusion in their minds as to the Labour position. I think if you're standing alongside Tory politicians, like it or not, the survey has recently shown that most of the speeches that come out of that are Tory spokesmen, not Labour. 48% Tory, 8% Labour. And why are we confused? Like in Scotland, if you peer alongside them and say, oh, we agree on Europe, you better start telling people what you disagree about. Jeremy's trying to do that. So I wouldn't do it. I just think it adds to the confusion.
If you can't get the Labour vote out in big numbers on the 23rd, are you now worried that you could lose this referendum?
Yes, I want every Labour person in to vote. I fought in the last one thinking we'd win on the referendum. We lost. And I think the reason we lost, mainly particularly women, I hope this isn't a sexist knock, they get concerned about the long term, about their children, about security. And I think that's what defeated us in 75. Curiously enough, I think it'll go the other way. And what we need to be talking about the other way and that women feeling in this election, I think we'll probably win it. But nobody's talking about the big powers. It's not Britain on its own. It's now global powers, America, India, China. They're the ones that are going to decide the issue about crime, about immigration, about security. We'll just be a little island with a pea shooter shouting out, don't you recognise we're a big power? But you'll have no say in the decision. It's a global world, and we better play a part in it.
Mr Corbyn's hinted he might bring Ed Miliband into the shadow cabinet. Would that be a good idea? And what about you? Are you available for the shadow cabinet?
I've done my bit for the Labour Party, except shout on the sides as I'm doing at the moment. But I think Ed Miliband, that's his decision to come into it. I do want to see a united party. We're not best at it at the moment. But one of the things is that people are confused because of these changes, and they did start during the last general election. Where does Labour stand? Start talking about it, start staying where we stand, and be a bit clearer on immigration. We've been cowards on immigration, not only Labour, the whole political establishment has avoided the argument, and the people disagree with us, and that is a global solution, because I'll tell you what, there's going to be more migration coming from African countries like that, which have no water, no food because of climate change. This is not a temporary problem, it's a global problem, leads a global solution, and not a little country on the side shouting and staying out of it.
John Prescott, thanks for coming on this morning.
Okay.